To order the regular meeting of the City of Cottonwood Planning and Zoning Commission on Monday, August 17, 2020, in the Cottonwood Community Center Clubhouse. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Hart, Commissioner DeSisto,
Here.
Commissioner Sherman, Commissioner Richter,
Here.
Commissioner Maston,
Here.
Vice Chairman Dowell,
Here.
Chairman Williams.
Here. Thank you. Next item on our agenda is the approval of the minutes for our July 20th, 2020 regular meeting. Do I hear any additions, deletions, or corrections to those minutes? If not, Mr. Vice Chairman, to give us a motion, please.
I would propose a motion to approve the minutes from the July 20th meeting.
Okay. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Lindsay?
Yes.
Mr. Mattson, second the motion. All in favor, roll call. Just all in favor? Aye?
Aye.
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 Aye. And before we get too deep into our program, I'd like to, we have a new commissioner with us again tonight, Rand Richter.
Yep.
And welcome, Rand. And
Thank you very much.
Give us a minute or two, just who you are and what you do and whatever.
My name is Rand Richter. I have a web development agency here in Cottonwood, work from home. I wanted to look for a way to get engaged with the community. I have a background in real estate, and when I saw the opening in the paper, it was actually my mother who saw the opening in the newspaper. She sent it right over to me, and I thought it would be, you know, something exciting and a way to give back, as well as, you know, being fulfilling. I've lived here on and off since I was 4 years old, went to high school here, went to elementary school here. I just always seem to be drawn back to this place. It's like nowhere else I've lived, and I love it and hope I can be helpful. So, thank
Good.
you.
Well, we hope so too. We appreciate you volunteering for it, and I think you'll find it very interesting. Tonight is a little bit shorter agenda than sometimes we have, but we've got an excellent staff that keeps us in line and going, and be sure to, we want your voice heard on issues as we're going through. There's no bad questions.
Sure.
Okay, if you have a question, something in your mind, be sure to let me know so that you can ask those questions. That's important. Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Okay. Any more informational reports, Mr. Director?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commission. Just a couple things. As you know, we've been working on our Parks Master Plan for the CDBG project. That is getting ready to wrap up, at least the first part of it with the plan itself. Supposed to go to City Council meeting on September, I believe, the 18th. Is that whatever that second Tuesday is in September, or sorry, the third Tuesday in September. That'll be presented to City Council at that time, in case you're interested. I know we had a couple commissioners attend the open house meetings that we had, so that plan part of it is getting wrapped up. In case you haven't been through town, over by Main and Mingus, all those buildings on that corner have been taken down. They're actively working on the project to bring in that new Circle K that's been approved by the commission a couple of years back. And also further down on Main Street, the Ming House has been demolished. Get ready for a potential new project at that location, hopefully be coming before you.
Is that just a demolition thing at this point on the Ming House, or?
There's a proposed project going at that location, but they haven't submitted beyond initial yet to come to the commission. They would be coming before you.
At least something's coming out of the ground finally.
Well, that's the plan.
Yes.
That's all I have.
Okay, very good. Next item on the agenda is call to the public. Anybody who's interested in talking to us about any matter that's not on the agenda. I didn't have any slips, so I assume there's not. So we'll go on to our first item of business, which is old business. And that's a discussion for ZEO 20006, amendment to the City of Cottonwood zoning ordinance, adding a new section 409, recreational vehicle and manufactured home parks. Gary Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. I don't have a long presentation tonight. This is a continuation of last month's discussion. We did come back with a small change to the amendments that are proposed, and that would place a 6-month length of stay limit on RV parks, and that would be throughout. That's just kind of a blanket thing, and that's what I took away from that meeting as what we wanted to come back and discuss. And so back here to discuss it and see if that's what the commission intended, to make that blanket across the board, or if you wanted to get a little more surgical about it and see if is this the tool that you need to solve or prevent a problem with. So we can discuss that. I wanted to let you know too that I have contacted all the RV parks that exist in Cottonwood. There's about 5 or 6 of them, and gave them a chance to comment on the draft standards. And I don't know if we'll see anybody tonight or get any comments on it, but at least we wanted to reach out and give them that opportunity.
Okay. Talk to us about pluses and minuses, problems, and whatever with the time limitation that you...
Well, time limitation can be a challenge to enforce. We can, rather than going around knock on RV doors, we can check the books of RV parks, or do kind of time-to-time audits, or respond to any complaints, problems that we may have observed, things like that. But it's something that is, again, is it the solution or the tool to address a particular issue? And it gets to the idea we were talking about a little bit last month, where there's kind of a fine line in RV parks now. Is it a residential use? Is it a commercial use? Is it both? A lot of RV parks have both a section for overnighters and for more long-termers. Sometimes it's seasonal. People come here for 4 months, 6 months. Is a 6-month limit going to do what is intended? Should that period be shorter, or should it be applied to different zones, some zones but not others? Are some zones more appropriate for a more long-term residential type of RV park potentially than an overnighter, which may be more appropriate in some other zones? That's maybe the question that we can bring up and see if what's proposed here really does it for you.
What about if we put a time limitation section in here, how does that affect existing RV parks? Would it apply to them as well?
It would. I'm not sure that it would apply to existing RV parks, because this would be part of the conditional use permit process.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, Commission, any of the existing parks, as long as they maintain existence as they are today, we wouldn't bring these new rules onto them. If they try to expand or new one comes in, then these now take effect.
Now we go. Yeah, so this would be specific to each individual case as we have.
Right. This would be for anybody new coming in or any existing ones that are expanding.
Right. Okay, that's good.
And the way this is written is, in any zone that RV parks are permitted, they would be a conditionally permitted use. So they would have to come through the conditional use process, and the commission would have the opportunity to place conditions. They can change the length of stay. They can waive the length of stay per this provision. This provision basically sets a default of 6 months unless the commission changes it.
Mr. DeSisto, any questions of Gary?
Not at this time, no.
Vice Chairman, any? comments?
No, I think the added addition will give a little more flexibility, but with a little bit of teeth in order to keep the intended use, right? We talked about the purpose of this was to drive more tourism and to drive people coming in, and this time frame will hopefully keep the tourism moving rather than making a permanent house. But at the same time, it gives us some flexibility to change that if we needed to. So if somebody came in here for a reason that, you know, that a good reason why they should be for longer, then we could grant that. So I think it,
Yeah, or a partial part of the park or something.
yeah, I think it fits the purpose of what we wanted.
Mr. Maston?
No questions at this time.
This might have been covered last meeting, and I'm sure it was, but if you could quickly summarize, the intended purpose is something that everyone keeps mentioning, but what is the intended purpose for this time limit? What is the problem that it is solving?
What we're concerned about is that some of these RV parks, or part of them, excuse me, are becoming permanent residence parks.
I see that happening.
Yeah, as you know, for housing. And what we're saying here, residential or these recreational vehicle parks really should be intended for tourists and, you know, coming, spending the season, or short-term, overnight, whatever. That's been sort of some of our feelings here, as opposed to providing permanent housing. Now, if somebody came in and said, okay, maybe I can like to have like 25% of my park
Sure.
become, you know, we'd have some latitude, I think, under this conditional use permit. These conditional use permits, it requires us to examine the plan and approve it. And we've got some flexibility in there. The concern was to put some kind of limitation. The agency I worked for at the state prior to retirement, we had audit capabilities with our clients, so-called clients. But we, you know, it was a sampling type thing. We wouldn't go out and audit every client every year, but that fact was still out there that if you're not in compliance, you might have a problem. So I sort of see this as a way to do that, to give us the intent of what we want to keep it a tourist park. And this is a tool you can use. You know, we talk about burden of the staff. If the staff had to go out 3 times a year at every park, that doesn't make a lot of sense. But just the idea that those owners know we have the ability to do that if we hear about, you know, that they're violating what we intended to. All right. Mr. Mangini is with us tonight. Michael, would you like to further enlighten us, sir?
Mike Mangini, P.O. Box 265, Cottonwood, Arizona. I just have a comment on the standards. And from experience, we had built an RV park up at Happy Jack, Arizona. And originally, we paved the streets. And so we had 68 sites initially that were paved. We found that, one, our customers did want paved streets. We found that lenders wanted to have paved streets. We found the county wanted to have paved streets. But repeatedly through our expansions, we kept on going back to the county. Do we really need to have paved streets when nobody wants it? So in 3 different expansions, each time doubling our capacity, finally the Board of Supervisors says, you keep asking that. Wouldn't it cost you more to tear out the asphalt than it is just to leave it there? And we said yes, because it's 4 inches thick. It's designed to carry these heavy vehicles, and we would rather just remove it. And so they gave us permission to remove all the asphalt that originally we put in. Now the point I say there is really, Lenders are the only ones that want to see the asphalt in an RV park. People don't like the heat. The asphalt gets hot. They'd rather have something lighter colored in as far as the driveways. It also, you don't have the water that sheets off the roadways when you have the graveled surface. RVers hate mud. So number one thing is make sure there's no mud, make sure it's easy for them to get around. And that's why I think the provision that you have, they have to be paved or hard surface or hard stone. I think just a definition, even a dust-free aggregate would be effective. We don't put we put ABC down initially, but we put a ornamental rock down, and depending which area we're at, we put decomposed granite to everything from they call it the Payson red. It's a red, 3/4 inch rock. Those seem to be a standard that makes sense. That asphalt, to be honest with you, after a while your park starts looking dated, unless you're out there black coating it all the time. And then people don't like the black coat, so it's got catch-22. That's the one item. The other one I bring up is the fire code, where they talked about hydrants, spacing. I am familiar in 2018, they didn't have it in the fire code. The RV parks were exempt. I'm not sure what the standard is when they reference that today. What kind of fire protection is necessary. We do have hydrants in our parks, but we also have spaced further apart these boxes that have fire extinguishers in them. All RVs are required to carry a fire extinguisher. So we haven't had experiences with any fires, is what I'm saying. The third item is the campfire sites. They had a prohibition against the campfires. I'll be honest, up in the forest, it was closed for a long time, so we had no fires at all, period, in the county. But the campers love campfires. I mean, it's just the nature of being out in an RV. So I wouldn't put a strict prohibition on the campfire rings that people use out there, because it's just the nature of the guests. They want their campfires.
Have you had any experience on the hill up here for the new winery? They're talking about a new surface that water penetrates through, but yet gives you a surface that's basically like asphalt, but it eliminates the runoff for the water, off the pavement. And
Chairman, are you talking about the geogrid?
Pavers, the permeable pavers?
Yeah, permeable, well, are they pavers or?
I think that's what they're called. They're like a grid, and
Well,
they have holes in them.
I think that surface up there, Director, maybe you can give.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, Commission, they're not actual pavers. They're kind of a permeable, interconnected. They could look like pavers the way they're set up, but they're not true pavers. It is an alternative parking surface that we do allow for in our parking code
And
now.
apparently the rainwater can permeate so that they don't have a runoff problem.
What's it called?
I don't remember the exact name of it. I can get that information to you. Rick, True Grid.
Thank you.
Very good. Good comments, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
I only have one other item that I think we need to discuss further tonight, is the logic of where these parks can be located, even with a conditional use permit. We found out last month that they would be allowed in heavy industrial I2 zones as a conditional use permit, but are strictly prohibited in industrial 1 zone parcels. And I understand we have very limited I1, but I can foresee as this city grows, particularly toward Camp Verde, that we could hopefully see some more industrial parks eventually come in. So I guess I'm looking for the future, not worrying about today. It just, to me, it's either they should be excluded from both of them or not at all. We have a limited amount of industrial zone property already, and granted, we don't have anybody beating down the doors particularly. We have a new hotel going in on one that's city-owned over here. But we don't have a lot of new industrial development, I don't think, at this particular point, but I can see that coming, and I think we need to plan for that. So I guess, and it's, from a use standpoint, I don't think it's a real problem. I'm not compatible use. I don't have a problem. The only problem I'd have is if part of the property were used as an RV park, and next door you have a heavy industrial use, the noise and pollution, whatever, could be affecting that park or whatever, and I'm sure we get a lot of complaints on that. That's the other concern with I-2 particularly, because they can get a little messy at times, and what use is going on in those. So I'd like to go to each commissioner and maybe get a little input from what your thoughts might be on that issue too. Start over here, sir. We'll put you to heat to the fire a little bit.
I don't know if I have any at this time.
All right.
Well, as I said last month, I'm very much in favor of the RV parks coming in. I think that
Yes.
the area wants tourism, and I still think that it's worth the trade-off, having the RV parks able to go into like the C2 areas where we already have hotels, because it seems very part and parcel to me. So if it's going to be, you have one and then you automatically have the other, then I think it's worth it to have it. So I think that that's the smarter decision for the city growth long term. And I think we've got some room for industrial to grow too, like over by the airport.
Okay. Tom, what do you?
I basically agree. I think a C2 zone, in my limited knowledge, seems to be appropriate at this time. That's really all I have to say.
Good. Vice Chairman, sir.
Sir, wasn't there a reason why it was not in I-1, but you could be allowed in I-2? Wasn't there a code reason for that? Like they eliminated it from I-1?
I don't know the background behind why. I just know in I-1 they specifically say no RV parks. It would allow commercial uses except for RV parks. That specific prohibition is not in I-2.
That's what it was, okay.
Yeah.
So it already exists in code that I-1 is not allowed to have RV, but because I-2 and
C2.
C2 are so close that they can
Yeah, they can use that.
use that either way.
Right, and Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, I do believe that part of that reason is we only have a couple of properties that are zoned I-1, very, very few. It could be argued that we have limited I-2 as well. However, compared to I-1, it is a huge difference. So again, I don't know the background either, but I do know that looking at what we have for I-2, it makes sense that that restriction was put in place the way it was.
I wouldn't have any problem with it being the C2 or the I2.
Yeah,
I would like to talk about the paving, and I would like to talk about the outdoor fireplace. That's already, he's brought some good points up with the fire pits. I mean, in this new code that we're talking about, it prohibits the fire pits except for common areas, and I think he's right. When you go RVing, that's part of the experience. That's part of what it is. So I mean, that's something we probably need to discuss based off of his comment, and I'd like to hear from obviously the fire department, see what their comments are on the issue before we take any further stance on this.
Yeah, we can revisit the I-1 later on. Maybe we think we want to eliminate that restriction on I-1. It just seems illogical. We should be consistent. And I really don't. I was just looking at the inconsistency situation. I agree with Commissioner Aston, that, yeah, it's sitting there, this would be good uses for it, you know, in most areas. And Mr. Mangini's possible proposed park up there would be a good use. So I don't have a problem with that. Okay, talk, what are the roads? What's your thought on the,
Well, I
on the
think,
paving?
well, I think the paving, quite honestly, is already covered. I think the city already provides a lot of options for paving within our paving options for new development, correct, Mr. Director?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, we could make this refer to our existing parking ordinance, which does allow for alternative paving, either full paving, chip seal under certain circumstances, or alternative paving as approved by the city engineer. Those mechanisms are already in place in the parking ordinance, so we can incorporate that into here to refer back to that. One of the key things with any alternative paving is that it does work with drainage and fire truck capacity as well. So, but we have those provisions in the parking ordinance.
Yeah, I just feel if we adopted those standards already into this, we meet the needs of the fire department, the other people who use it, and we meet the needs of the RV parks because they don't have to have it paved necessarily. They can use the other types of things that we already allow, which isn't necessarily asphalt, it's different other types of options. So I think if we use or we incorporate what the city already allows into this ordinance, it gives more leeway for that.
Give the developers some flexibility a little bit. Yeah, I think that'd be a good suggestion.
Yeah, we can make that change.
Sounds good.
And I wanted to point out too, Mr. Chairman, that that section 409A1C, it's in black, so that means it was there already. That's in the code already for manufactured home parks. So we just kept all the wording we could that was existing that worked, but we can make that change and make it consistent with how we deal with that in other parts of the code, other parts of the city.
Sounds good to me, yeah. I think that'd be a good suggestion. And how does the overall, any more comments on the time limitations? Yay or nay? Do you, Tom?
Nay.
Huh?
Nay.
Nay, okay.
Yeah, I think the time frame is, again, something that allows us a little more flexibility or, you know, whatever it may be for that.
Commissioner, any thoughts on, just from your experience?
No.
You'd like to see it not be a restriction?
I think that it makes sense, at least like you were talking about with your previous job, having some kind of mechanism there if it's causing an issue, but also some way around it if we need to.
We'd have some flexibility to move with it. I just think there's something good to stay in there.
I think it's fine as long as we can evaluate it every time a conditional use permit comes in.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
we need some flexibility on that. Different things happen, different ideas. Development plans are just, you know, they're not cookie cutters. A lot of times they have a lot of different ideas. We need to get a vote maybe to table this and have you bring it back with.
Can we finish the discussion on the fireplaces?
Oh, yes,
real quick?
sir.
Just so we can wrap this up for the next meeting. I want to get all the addresses out in one. So
There you go.
Can we talk to the fire department real quick and see what his thoughts are on?
Your name for the record, sir.
Good evening. I'm Fire Marshal Rick Contreras, Cottonwood Fire.
Good. Thank you very much. Your comments, please.
Okay, so I'd have to look in the fire code for an RV park. We don't have that existing right now. Typically, common areas is what you're looking at. Just depends on what Mr. Mangini and his group's going to propose, and we'll take a good look at that. You guys covered a lot of the other issues. Access is key. gross vehicular weight that Mr. Ellis brought up, in the fire code it's 75,000 gross vehicular weight, but I think the city just has a new standard on 80,000. So I think they'll be able to meet a lot of these things, but access and fire flow is a key. Fire extinguishers are going to be important, but fire flow, fire hydrants are definitely going to be a factor here.
What about individual sites?
As far as a pit?
Yeah.
Are you talking about?
They have these little portable.
If they're, maybe if it's are you talking about an LP pit with an on and off switch, that type, or are you talking about something with natural products that burn, like campfires? It depends what kind of pit.
Well, I guess that would be our question to you is, if we were going to allow something like that outside of the common areas, what would?
Well, the fire code will drive it first. If there's no clear answer, then we'll have to make a determination in-house with staff.
So there's no real prohibition against it. It's just you'd have to look at each.
Well, I didn't look that up before I came here because I didn't think that was going to come up. So I would rather refer to the fire code.
All right.
First to get a specific answer, the right answer.
Okay. Maybe we can research that, Gary, with the fire department.
Yes.
See if we can come up with some reasonable idea of what, maybe we just need to be specific on what could be allowed or types.
Well, I guess the easy way to fix this is just change the new wording to whatever the fire code says.
Follow fire code.
Whatever the fire code says, and then
Or we could do that too.
if we did that, I guess it would cover it, and then we're in compliance with the fire code, because we're not going to go against fire code regardless, so.
Right, and it's never a personal opinion, it's what the code drives. So, if it specifically states that, then it is what it is. And we're always available for anything, work with staff on this.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And the wording we have in there right now is hydrants with sufficient flow shall be provided in accordance with currently adopted fire code. And open fire pits and barbecues shall be limited to common areas and be constructed according to currently adopted fire codes.
Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, what is the definition of a common area, and is the common area going to have to be subjected to an adopted fire code, or is the fire code only going to be for each individual RV?
I imagine it's going to be for the park itself, and you got to factor in combustibles near the area, other obstructions. I'm sure they're going to have to put in some landscaping as part of this project, so we got to factor that in. Just, I know we're not talking about an apartment complex, but if we were, there's certain factors that go in there with barbecue pits and fire pits, and it's typically common areas. It's not on any wood deck or anything like that. I know that won't factor in for them, but that is typically what you see, common area rules on those kind of situations.
Thank you.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, as long as maybe we don't need to say just limit the common areas, but just meet the fire code.
That'd be the only thing I'd ask is why even have the limiting it to common areas and just refer to the fire code in general.
Yeah,
Yeah, and
think
then,
that's fair.
even if it was allowed, like the weather we're experiencing now,
yeah.
no fires. So, we really kind of got to watch that too. So we'll look at it and give you, a better answer. But the fire code, the way that's written, is specific to the fire code.
That's great. Thank you.
Thank you.
No, I'm good.
You're good with that?
Yeah, I'm good.
Yeah, okay. I agree with the Vice Chairman. I mean, a little flexibility, but again, we have to abide by the fire code. They want to amend the fire code, that's something else. That's something else there. Okay, so I guess we'll vote to table this for right now, and you bring it back for our recommendation next time?
Yes, we can come back with those two changes made. We'll work with the fire marshal on the fire code issues, and we'll add the provision referring to our existing standards on pavement.
Okay, good. Vice Chairman, can I get a motion for tabling?
I would make a motion to table this until staff has the appropriate time to bring it back.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Mattson, seconds. Vice Chairman's motion. Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner DeSisto,
Aye.
Commissioner Richter,
Aye.
Commissioner Maston,
Aye.
Vice Chair Dow,
Aye.
Chairman Williams.
Aye. Motion unanimously carried, and that's good. I think we made some good progress and ideas, and want to thank Mr. Mangini for his input. To talk about a few other issues that we, they're important. Those little devils in the details, right? There you go. All right. On the new business, we have CUP 19005, MOD Verde Valley Homeless Coalition requesting a modification to their conditional use permit. Mr. Paget.
Thank you, Chairman Williams, members of the Commission. As you stated, this is a modification to an existing conditional use permit for the Verde Valley Homeless Coalition. They received their original conditional use permit from you in January of this year, have been operating at 654 North Main since that time. They recently did receive some grant funding, and so they are looking at expanding some of the operations that they have and the services they provide for additional hours and additional days beyond what the original conditional use permit allowed. As I said, that it is an existing conditional use permit. Currently, their hours Monday through Friday, 1 to 5. They do have a cold weather shelter that would provide overnight accommodations when the weather is forecast to be 35 degrees or lower. With that, there is a maximum of 20 residents that would be able to stay there overnight. And that is also providing that there is enough staff to supervise those 20 residents. So the current modification request would allow them to operate 7 days a week from 1 to 5, offering the same services that they currently offer, just Monday through Friday. The additional overnight accommodations, they are looking to provide services to people who may be impacted in some way by the COVID-19 issues. This is not a medical facility where they would treat somebody that would be positive, but perhaps somebody who had lost a job, lost their residence, some other outlying circumstance related to the COVID situation. As I stated, that they did get some CARES funding. They are under time frames for that money to be used and spent, and that expires December 31st of this year. So the additional hours, the additional overnight possibilities have the same requirements, restrictions as the daily operations currently in existence and the overnight. In all of those situations with the overnight accommodations, the 20 people maximum was something that was approved by an ordinance by the City Council to waive the sprinkler requirements to allow, under normal circumstances, a facility like this would be required to have sprinklers. They did receive the accommodation through the City Council for the current cold weather shelter to have those 20 people capacity. This would then extend the possibility that they have 20 people that they would have contact with on a more regular daily basis. And once again, that is dependent on them having the staff to handle the 20 people. The waiver that they received from the council, well, the fire code requires the building to be sprinklered. Since I got the waiver, it is not required to be sprinklered, only for the cold weather shelter. They would have to come back to the city council to expand that waiver to not be required to sprinkler for these additional days and hours that they are asking for. With the cold weather shelter, there's the criteria of, if it's going to be 35 degrees or colder. And so you open up the shelter. With the COVID situation, there's a lot more outlying scenarios that could exist. We did have a conversation last week with the Homeless Coalition. They provided us some additional details today that I emailed them to you this afternoon, and also there's a hard copy for you to look at this evening. So they're working on their policies and procedures for how they would address the COVID situation. Like all the public facilities, they are required to meet all the CDC requirements, any local, state regulations. And as I stated, they did provide some of those details to us today. So they've gone through, they've just identified, and this is quickly just, they'll be taking temperatures, they'll do some of the normal isolation and quarantine suggestions. Should somebody show up at their facility and is determined that they are having symptoms, they would be turned away either to a medical facility, or they have arrangements to lodge them in various hotel accommodations around town. The additional hours that we're looking at, as I stated earlier, their funding is up through December 31st. So we're looking at this as it only being a temporary situation to deal with the COVID situation and people who may be impacted. We are not looking at this as a long-term, that this would be opened up on a permanent basis beyond whenever the COVID situation is under control.
Who judges that, Jim? Who makes that judgment?
I'd be a wealthy man if I knew the answer to that. But no, that would be, I think, determined by what the CDC and the government determines as when the COVID requirements are free enough to be relaxed, and that the COVID requirements are not, the health requirements are not. Did I not answer your, maybe I didn't understand your.
Well, I don't know, Mr. Director, would that be up to you, the staff then?
Mr. Chairman, to decide when the pandemic is over?
Yeah, if we leave it open, we don't put a time limit on it.
That is a hard question to answer, because ultimately it would probably come from a higher government level to determine that, whether it's the CDC, the governor, the president, whenever it's decided that it really is over. We unfortunately have had the same question we've asked ourselves. We've asked the applicant to clarify on their end what they would look like, what it would look like on their end, on who makes that determination.
Yeah, somebody's got to be able to make that decision locally, because what applies to the state doesn't necessarily apply here, in my opinion. And the stuff from the state that I've seen coming down seems to be pretty generalized type statements, and I haven't seen anything that It's probably there, but I haven't seen anything like on homeless shelters or whatever as to a situation like this. Otherwise, if we approve this as written, we'd be authorizing them to be a permanent conditional use permit without modification.
With a conditional use permit, you do have the authority to place
Yes.
stipulations on there.
We can make stipulations.
Their funding is up through December 31st, and so perhaps there would be an opportunity, a request to bring that back to you and review what the current health situation is at that time.
That'd be a new stipulation to what you have, though.
That would be correct.
Okay.
Yes, that stipulation is not in your stipulations as the report is written.
We have a representative from the Homeless Coalition tonight, or do we need to?
We do. I just sort of went through some of the some of the improvements they have done at the area as far as in the last 8 months since they have been located there. They've done significant improvements to the facility and their operation. They're still planting shrubs, bushes. Just also to let you know, when we went through the original approval, we had one person who sort of questioned and perhaps was not real thrilled that the Homeless Coalition was going there. Since that one comment back in January, we've had no complaints come through our department. There have been a few police calls just for minor infractions, or that they would go and check on domestic violence or whatever issues, but it has not been a significant. I think there was 15 in the last 8 months, 15 calls. And on the site just sort of shows the building where they're located. Some of the interior photos, exterior area where they could distance themselves. The view from what you see from Main Street, looking west on Main Street, east along Main Street, north across Main Street, and the property to the rear. So that's all I have to say. I'm available for any questions. As you noted, a couple people from the Homeless Coalition. We have Carol Quasila and Matthew Martin. We also have Rick Contreras with the Fire Department and Commander McCooch with the Police Department, should you have any questions that need to be directed their way.
Mr. Contreras, you want to come up and talk about the sprinkler situation before we have the applicant come up? Would appreciate it.
Okay, so the waive that happened from the city council was for emergency homeless shelter, cold weather emergencies. So when the temperature was under, I think, 35 degrees, you know, they were allowed to open and house people there with fire watch regulations that we put in place and all that. So this is going to go a little bit past that. I don't have the authority or right to overrule the city council. It's just like the fire code, it's the law, and National Fire Protection Association, those rules and our ordinances. So that's why in my code review comments, I couldn't approve it the way it is right now and where we're at today. However, I commend Carol and her staff for the great job they do. It's nice that they want to help people in this community. We all do. When we went to the city council that night, when they were striking up this ordinance, I believe it's ordinance 637, we were in favor of helping people, but we don't want it with the lack of safety. Don't give up safety for safety. I do not want to see them lose their CARES money either. So I don't know what the answer is here, but I think, you know, number one, I can't approve something that the council put in place as an ordinance in this town. My job is to enforce that ordinance. And so we have a very, very positive, proactive fire sprinkler ordinance, probably the best one in the state. And you look in this big, beautiful building we're in, this historic building, and if you look up, the city project, but we had to sprinkler it, and we don't even have people sleeping in here. So, you know, you see these things happen, and there's so many fires that have happened in this town that you never even heard about. Maybe we get a line in the newspaper, or maybe the radio does a quick blip on it, but they don't make the press. The ones that make the press are the big 2-story building got struck by lightning, the big hay barn across from Denny's. You know, everybody knows about those, the Catholic Church. So back to the original question, me as the fire marshal, I cannot approve or go against the ordinance. However, again, personally, I think what they do is a very good thing.
Any questions? Marshall? Yes, Commissioner Manson.
Marshall, is there anything they could do in lieu of the sprinklers besides the watch that they're doing? Like, could they have more extinguishers? Could they have some sort of a water? Is there anything they could do just until, say, if we put a limit to like December 31st so that they can use their...
Great question. I appreciate your thinking. They were proposing a fire alarm, and again, apples and oranges. We're in this building. They had to do sprinklers and a fire alarm. With their facility, it would probably strike both of those as well. They already have fully their smoke detectors, their extinguishers. They are fully trying to comply for the homeless emergency shelter that they are housing now. However, we're kind of all in this point, in this period of like, what do we got to do? What do they got to do? You know, what do I have to do as the fire marshal? So those are great questions, and I don't have the solid answer for you that meets code.
Anybody else? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Very good. Thank you very much. So who do we have, Jim? Coalition.
Executive Director. Hello, my name is Matthew Martin. I'm the Executive Director for the Verde Valley Homeless Coalition. Thank you so much for your time this evening. We are absolutely aware of the code. The problem lies in this is that the fire suppression system runs a minimum of $30,000 all the way up to, we've been quoted up to over 180. That being said, we don't have that. Even if we did have that, we don't currently own the building. And so because of that, that's where we're running into the issue. Even if we had the $30,000 to invest in the building, which we would be happy to do if we owned it. But we don't own it yet. We're working on that. Until that occurs, this is sort of where we're at. We did offer a fire alarm system where if fire is detected, it automatically calls the fire department, something along those lines. And that's to the tune of about $8,000. So we're willing to put or invest in this. We just can't quite invest all of that as of right now. And I totally understand that that's the ordinance is the ordinance. But in the meantime, we have several individuals who are without a place to sleep at night. And that simple thing really can affect many multitudes of behavior, of problems within the city with, drunken intoxication in public, so on and so forth. But all of those can be eliminated if you have a place to go. And we're willing to provide that and able to provide that through the CARES Act. And what it really is just a way for us to keep a temperature, so to speak, of the individuals in our transient community, and have an idea of what's going on within that population. Because if COVID does wind up in that population, it's going to run right through it very quickly. And those people come in contact with how many citizens and tourists every day. So this way we can sort of keep a monitor and a track of the transient population to see what they're doing and how they're feeling and if they're sick. And we have the resources through the CARES Act to isolate them within hotels and whatnot. So that's sort of where we're at.
What What happens when the care money goes away? Is there a limitation on time?
Well, the contract this current contract runs through 12/31.
Okay.
Now, is that going to be extended? I wish I knew. It's COVID. I mean, we're all in uncertain times right now. Is COVID going to be over 12/31? I don't know. You know, I can't say that. But this contract runs through that. Now, there is a possibility that the contract could be extended, in which case then we would look to extend things as well. But that being said, we really are only asking for a few more nights and to open a little bit early right now than versus the cold weather, which is going to be here shortly anyway.
But if that funding goes away, your staff goes away too, that funds?
Well, what we're planning to do is to hire 4 individuals, a minimum of 4 individuals to operate the overnight shelter, and we'll review those as we go forward. But we also have additional funding in the future that we're looking to get to purchase the building, so on and so forth, so we can bring all of this in line.
Any other comments? We have some questions, I'm sure.
Anybody has any questions?
Sisto.
Okay, I may be a little bit behind the 8 ball, but the CARES Act will also impact what we want to do for the COVID-19 homeless people. Is that correct? Does the CARES Act also help them?
The CARES Act is specifically, well, it's a good portion of it is for them as well.
Okay.
To deal with and keep track and give provisions and whatnot to the transient population, the homeless community. So it gives them, you know, hand sanitizer and information, literature on COVID and face masks and you know, bleach and ways that we can wash their laundry and clothes and I mean all of that. And so all of that is part of the CARES Act.
Okay. What about the initial concept here is for the homeless, correct? The homeless within Cottonwood community, correct? Okay. And then it's going to be, in conjunction with that is it will care for families suffering from the COVID-19 place to live.
Potentially, yeah.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Vice Chairman.
I have quite a few questions. Bear with me. Let me start off by saying that this is, in my opinion, a very needed and necessary thing. We need it here in this community. So I'm going to ask you some critical questions, but it's not because I don't think we need the program, because we absolutely do. I just want to get these questions kind of out of the way. So how long can a client stay? So we've determined that the person is out of housing because of COVID's put them out of work and they don't have a house right now. How long could they stay in your facility?
There's no term limits on.
So they could stay, if they got in there tomorrow, they could stay until December 31st?
Correct.
Okay. How do you select those clients by priority? Is there a priority list? Is there?
So it's a first come, first served basis. They would come in and have to sign in at 1 o'clock when we open up, and it's the first 20 on the list. We usually take a couple reserves in case one doesn't show up or whatever the case may be, so that we are always filling those 20 beds, but it's first come, first served.
So every day they have to sign up?
Correct.
So it's not just they're in once and they're blanketed for the next 4 months. They have to sign up every day.
They have to sign on every day, and then their bed gets taken away every day.
Okay. Currently, you have 20 beds.
Correct.
That was before the COVID situation. With COVID, do you still have enough space for 20 beds? Do we still have the 6-foot distancing and that kind of stuff?
We do.
Okay. Have we planned for an uptick on maintenance? Because now the facility is going to be used a lot more. your cost for maintenance is going to go up. Will the current facilities accommodate that type of use?
Yes.
Before it was kind of we only use it in cold weather. It was a partial thing. Now it's going to be quite a bit.
The only, I would say, negative to our current facility is that there's only the one bathroom. And that is literally the only negative. The rest of it, we've got the space, we've got the functionality. It's a warehouse, so I can open that thing up and put beds 20 feet apart if I wanted to. So I have all of that. As far as maintenance, the overall maintenance, a lot of it is done via volunteers, and so we're able to get anything repaired that we need to. And we do have the funds set aside for emergency situations like electrical outage or whatever the case may be.
So in your opinion right now, your facilities could operate with the extended hours with no issues for maintenance?
Absolutely.
Okay. You said there's one bathroom. Is just a bathroom with a toilet, or is there also a shower facility?
It's just a bathroom. It's not, we do not have any shower facilities.
There's no shower facilities on site?
No.
Okay. Would you require your clients to be there at 6?
I would actually change it a little bit because we're going to be bringing on paid staff versus volunteers.
Okay.
And so it'll be 8 to 8. Or there'll be 12-hour shifts.
Okay, so it would be 8 to 8.
Right.
Would you require your clients to be there 8 and be locked down, or is they can come in and they can leave? Because that's a concern of mine is the traffic in and out.
They can come in at 8. They could leave if they wanted to and come back up till 10. At 10 o'clock is sort of that cutoff, but they can leave at any time they want. They just can't come back.
Okay, so from 8 to 10, they can kind of come and go as they choose.
Yeah.
And then at 10 is pretty much you're
in.
either here or you're out.
They're in.
If you want to leave, you can leave, but once you leave, you're done for the night.
Correct.
Okay.
But
And-
once they sign in, once they check in at 8, if they leave and they come back and they smell of liquor or anything like that, they're not allowed admittance.
So they're
And then
done at that
we
point.
go into the reserved list.
Okay. And is there a lights out time? Like, okay, at
10 o'clock.
10 o'clock is your lights out. So they have to be back by 10, and that's when the lights are out, and there's no more
nonsense.
No more nonsense. Okay. I know you are going to hire your staff. They're going to have a fire watch, right? Basically a fire watch. Will they have a log that they fill out?
Absolutely.
So they'll have a fire watch log.
We have a cleaning log and a fire watch log that are both filled out every 30 minutes by the staff that are going to be hired.
Okay. And the last question I have is, you talk about basically the bedding. You don't exchange it. It gets washed every time. Do you have laundry facilities on site, or do they go somewhere else?
We have laundry facilities on site.
How many, what do you have for washers and dryers, that kind of thing?
We currently have 2 washers and 2 dryers right now.
Okay. I'm okay.
I'm good.
I have a couple of questions. How many people are on that reserve list every day?
A couple is all we allow because there's no point in really getting.
How many try and sign up every day?
Well, it's a race. It's a race. We could probably very easily bed at least 30 to 35 a night, but we have 20, and that's better than nothing. So
Definitely better than nothing, yeah.
Right.
That's crazy to me. It's so many. Thank you for what you do,
Well, thank
by
you.
the way. Have you spoken about the sprinklers? Have you spoken to the building owner about this?
we have the thing is the building owner. The original owner, she just recently passed away. So now the building has gone into inheritance with the sons. They want to sell the building. Really is what it's about. They don't want to put any money into it. They don't want to do it. They just want to sell it. But it has to be sold to a 501c, which is us. And so we basically, they're giving us time to get some things together so that hopefully we can purchase the property. And that includes the house next to it and the front building and then where we are currently located. And we're striving to achieve that within the next year. And once we do that, then we're happy to make an investment such as a fire suppression system, and we're happy to make the upgrades or the improvements to the property that need to be. It's just that we can't afford to do it to begin with, but we really cannot afford to do it to something we don't own.
And they have no interest in doing
They
it.
have no interest. They just want to sell it.
Are there other buyers interested, or is it just you?
We sort of have first rights for the time being anyway, and they're giving us basically a year to get our finances together to do it, and we're working on that. And monies like the CARES Act and whatnot are really been beneficial to help us achieve that goal. So.
And you spend it or you lose it by the 31st? Is that how that works?
Yeah.
Do you think you're going to be able to spend all you need?
I think I will easily. We submitted the budget to DES for this funding, and there's a second round of funding coming that is currently open for the same proximity of time. It's just we don't know that we're going to get that or not, but we're approved for funding, and it's given us covering our complete operational expenses, to include the overnight, and this is a first for us. We're learning and we're getting in with playing with some of the big boys, so to speak, in our industry, and it's been challenging, but it's been rewarding and fun, and it's bringing us to sort of the next level, so we can really support and provide services to those that we serve.
Back to the sprinkler. So it's pretty much a non-starter to comply with that sprinkler ordinance. There's just no way to do it internally with your funding, with the building owner. It's just not going to happen.
Well, the building owner would not prevent us from doing it. But again,
they just have no interest in doing it themselves. I mean, if you have a building for sale, sometimes you want to make improvements, especially if someone was going to do what you do in there. It makes the building more valuable to sell if it already has that, knowing the buyer's going to have to do it anyway. But that's why I was just curious kind of what the status was with the building owner.
Unfortunately, no. There's just no interest in any improvements like that.
And in the fire code, as I'm understanding it, it's a non-starter to have the people there without the sprinklers, to have them there overnight.
Right.
That's an issue that if we approve it as written tonight, it would require the fire sprinklers, but this goes to city council, and likely, well, we can't speak for the city council, but prior to approvals, they did waive that requirement to it. So what we would be approving tonight, if I understand it, would be, we'd have to comply with the codes. The code says sprinklers. So city council is the ones that can waive that requirement.
Perfect. That's all my questions then.
We can express to them, if you want, I guess in our comments, that we would encourage them or not encourage them to waive that requirement.
Right.
So I think we have some, from that latitude, but not within our specific recommendation.
Yeah, that's correct, Mr. Chairman. What the commission would be approving is the use for overnight more than just the cold weather shelter and the expanded hours. However, that fire waiver does come from City Council.
Okay, good.
Chairman Williams, if I could address a comment by Commissioner Richter regarding his questioning about the current owner, and they may be able to attest to this, but I think the current owner has gone above and beyond for assisting the Homeless Coalition to be where they are and what they've done. I think there's just a monetary standpoint that they're not able to. It's not that they wouldn't. They have accommodated the Homeless Coalition in many different ways just monetarily for that reason.
Absolutely.
They seem
haven't.
crazy
That was
expensive, and
our
I didn't mean to make
discussion.
it seem like they weren't being helpful or anything like that. I know I was speaking very matter-of-factly, just trying to get to the bottom of it quickly.
No, they have been so gracious by donating the area that we're currently in since November. And we pay a nominal fee for utilizing it, which is basically the utilities. So Friendship International, where we are located used to be the food bank. And the Chenoweth family has donated that space to us for nothing. And it's been a blessing. So it's given us a place to land.
There any other comments from anybody else from your okay, very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Do we have anybody in the audience who would like to address this issue? I don't have any slips, so I'm going to close the floor to the public. Mr. Sisto, I'm going to start with you, sir. Your comments and concerns of any, or the way this is written?
I actually don't have any comments at this time. I think what they're doing is admirable. So, I think at this time I will hold all questions.
Okay. Mr. Richter.
Same.
Mr. Maston.
I would encourage the council to waive the fire requirement till December.
Vice Chairman, any other comments? Your feeling on this?
Again, I think it's a necessary program. I think it absolutely fills a gap that we don't have here. In fact, not just in the city, I think it fills a gap within the region, within the entire Verde Valley. I know it provides a lot of assistance, and I think this would help with that. What's encouraging to me are your answers. I mean, when I ask you some kind of hard questions there, you gave me some good answers, and they weren't like, oh, I'm not sure. You gave me some good answers, and from my experience with the current overnight program that's run, I haven't seen any issues with it. I pleasantly surprised by the rule following that's done at the facility. So I wouldn't have any issue at this point approving it.
First of all, Jim, in your project proposal, it seemed that under hours of operation, say allow accommodation from 6 to 8, and it should be 8 to 8.
Correct, it would be 8 to 8. I think when we started this, it was 6 to 8, but it is 8 to 8.
Commissioner?
Yes.
One thing we may have left out is we want to check with Commander McCooch, see if he has any input on
who?
From Commander McCooch,
Oh,
any input
yeah,
from the law
fine,
enforcement
yes.
side?
Commander? That's a good idea. Thank you, sir. We don't put it all on you, right? Your name, sir?
Jody McCooch, Commander of the Cottonwood Police Department. Thank you, Mr. Commissioner. The comments that were provided by Commander Braxton in your packet are consistent with the views from the police department. Our concern is obviously the safety of the population that's being served, and we want to make sure that that's done as safely as possible.
You haven't had any real problems with this facility?
No, sir. And to add to Mr. Patch's comment about the police calls, not all of those were enforcement related. Some of them were community policing or seeking information.
Good. Any other questions of the commander? Thank you, sir. We appreciate you coming tonight. That's good.
Thank you.
Good input. Thank you, Vice Chairman. As written, we would be approving this conditional use permit as a permanent conditional use permit, as I read it, which is not, we probably need a permanent shelter in our city, so we don't want this, there's no other shelters available. We want to put some type of, we have the ability to put a limitation, time limitation, for us just to go back and review some of these conditional use permits, and a number of them we do. Some of them are very obvious. where they're not an operation like this, we go ahead and approve that conditional use as a permanent change. So I'd like each commissioner's input on that. Commissioner Richter, you want to start? Do you see a need for us to review this in 6 months or 8 months or December 31st or?
Perhaps December 31st would be the day, if at all. I mean, I guess that is coming sooner than the 6 months. I'd probably like to hear from the other chair people to see if they have a good reason to sway me why we would.
I think there's kind of a natural date, December and late December, to go back and review. And I think in general that review is good. It's not too onerous, I hope.
Yes.
And since this is a new thing for the community, I really, 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 really support it. But I think that review is good.
December 31st, I think, is an appropriate date to review again.
Vice Chairman.
I would approve it with a December 31st review.
These type of operations, a lot of times we've wanted to see them back just to, and even if we do it next time and everything is going good, we could just wipe out a future time limit. We could make it a permanent, but it's working well and the city's all happy.
Mr.
Chairman Williams?
Yes.
Just a couple corrections really quick. So the approval is not really for a permanent shelter. As stipulation number 2 says, it complies with the requested letter intent to allow the services related to COVID-19. So that goes back to whenever that's determined that the emergency's over, the pandemic's over, then that now takes that back. And then they'd come back, if they chose at that time or whatever time in the future, to come back to the commission for a permanent, everyday shelter moving forward, no matter what's going on in the world. And then question for the commission with the December 31st date, the commission does meet, obviously, the third Monday of every month, pushing this later into January, which would actually be the fourth Monday due to the January holiday. So just to be clear that the commission would want it at January's meeting. You can have a special meeting earlier in January if you so choose. So just let us know when you put that date in there, what you prefer to do.
I'm not real happy with the letter of intent related to when the COVID-19 experience. I think COVID-19 is personally going to be with us for a long, long time. It just shows it's going to depend until we get the vaccinations and mass vaccinations and so forth. I think we got to rely that it's going to continue on for a while. But when it's over, who makes that call? I'd like to have us personally be at the fourth meeting, or January 2021 meeting. We could ask for this to be brought back before the commission for approval.
My only argument to that would be if the program is running and it's running well, I would hate for there to be a delay of 20 days until they came back and saw us. I would say that they meet before December 31st so it can be reapproved. So our meeting in December, we can meet in, our meeting in December so that they have continuity in service. My fear is that December 31st comes, everything's going great, but we don't meet until the third week in January, and now we have 3 weeks that we have people who need the services who can't have the services. So if I was going to argue anything, it would be they should come back and revisit in December before this December 31st deadline so that we can extend it out if we need to. That way we have continuity of services and we don't have anybody sleeping under the stars.
Yeah, I'm a little bit confused because I think service would continue until we hear it. In other words, if we could put this out 9 months.
This ends when COVID ends, right? Not on December 31st, right?
But I mean, in lieu of that, our approval, they would keep operating. Unless there's somebody determines COVID's over by then, basically over. But this would give us a date of certain for them to come back, and so we can review it and just look at the operation, how it's going. I don't think it would disrupt their service.
No, Mr. Chairman, if the commission desires, they could put the date of December or January or whatever date you choose to allow them to continue that operation past December 31st, whatever date you pick.
Yeah. We're not going to,
for review.
they don't have to stop December 31st.
If you pick a date past that, no.
Yeah.
So I would then suggest that we don't do December 31st. I would suggest that we do January, whatever that first week is.
The fourth, yeah.
Our first meeting in January.
Yeah, our January meeting.
To extend the
It would be
CUP
January
through the
25th.
January meeting.
Right.
What day is that?
January 25th. And Mr. Chairman, one other stipulation that we would like to add, if the commission does approve this, is that the approval is contingent on city council waiving that fire sprinkler requirement.
Okay.
Can we do that?
Yes, because if city council doesn't waive that fire sprinkler requirement, their only option is to sprinkler it. Otherwise, they couldn't put people in there the way they're asking.
If they do not.
If they do not.
If they do come to some other kind of understanding, whatever it may be, though, and we make this contingent specifically on them doing that action, is it any different than if we just approve it and then they can't do it anyway until city council does that? Do we need to have that contingency?
Yes, it's always good to have that in there. That covers any question or any issues that may arise if it's not.
That makes sense.
So approval is contingent on city council waiving?
Waiving the fire sprinkler requirement.
Before we vote, any other comments? I hope the applicant, would you please come up, sir, again, just for a minute, please? I'm sorry. As far as the other stipulations to this conditional use permit, do you have any problems with them? Okay, we just want to make sure.
Not at all.
Okay, that you're on board.
All right.
Very good, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Vice Chairman, I'll entertain a motion from you, sir.
I would propose a motion to approve the following stipulations in accordance with PCU 19-005-MOD, or the modified CUP for the Verde Valley Homeless Coalition. One, that the project is developed in conformance with the development plans as approved at the Planning and Zoning Commission at the January 27, 2020 meeting. That the project complies with the request of the letter of intent for the modifications to allow services related to COVID-19. Number 3, that the project conforms to the Code Review Board comments dated November 21st, 2019 and July 29th, 2020. That the project complies with all building, health, fire, and police department requirements for current operations and any expansion of services and hours of operation. A certificate of zoning compliance documenting the completion of conditions shall be issued prior to the issuance of a certificate of occupancy. Number 6, that the applicant provides email and phone contact information to all property tenants and owners within the 300-foot radius. Number 7, the city of Cottonwood reserves the right to revoke the conditional use permit if the use creates an irreparable public safety problem as determined by the city. Number 8 would be the CUP would expire January 25th, 2021, and the applicant would need to reapply. Number 9, approval is contingent on the city council waiving the fire sprinkle requirement. And number 10, any other stipulations the Planning and Zoning Commission deems necessary.
Do I have a second to that motion?
I second.
Mr. DeSisto seconds the Vice Chairman's motion. Do we have any other further discussion?
Not for me.
Okay. Roll call vote, please, Cassidy.
Commissioner DeSisto.
Aye.
Commissioner Richter.
Aye.
Commissioner Maston.
Aye.
Vice Chairman Dow.
Aye.
Chairman Williams.
Aye. Unanimously passed. Thank you. Good luck. We really appreciate your efforts. Wonderful. All right. Any discussion items or topics for future meetings, sir?
No, sir.
All right. Anybody else have anything they need to discuss tonight? If not, I'll declare we stand adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I'll leave my booklet this time.